I am not, again, I don't really feel like I'm going to ramble too much because I don't want to. Just the mood I'm in. I'm getting hungry. It's almost time for lunch and I know exactly what sandwich I want to make. And I can't wait to do that thing. I can't wait to make that sandwich. Okay? I love a grilled cheese. I said I wasn't going to ramble, but I'll keep it short. I love a grilled cheese sandwich. Okay? For those unfamiliar with the grilled cheese sandwich, criminal. It's basically you butter two slices of bread and you pan fry it. Okay? You want it extra crispy? Mayonnaise. It's the egg in it that gets it extra crispy. If that's what you want to do. I actually don't like mayonnaise. But, and then you just cheese. Sometimes I'll use baked cheese, bacon, or cured meat. I made a grilled cheese with pepper jack, arugula, and chorizo slices. And some arugula or whatever kind of green I have, dip it in some tomato soup. Are you kidding me? I could sell it. Anyway, let's dive into this. This is, as you can tell by the title of this video, this is an unhaul. I did another unhaul sometime in 2024 and I got rid of a lot of books. And so I was going back through my shelves and I have more books that I want to get rid of. I'm just not going to read these books. Some of them I have read and I'm like, I won't read these again. And others I'm looking at them and I'm like, not interested anymore, which happens. I think the reason for that is you can see, again, there's a trend here with these books. I think the reason why is just because I really just don't like fluff. Maybe let me rephrase that. I'm not gravitating towards fluff. My preference really are the heavy hitters. And for me, a fluff is like an Outlander book or a Game of Thrones books. And those still aren't the fluffiest. Or certain types of historical fiction. But at this point, you'll see. Let's dive in. Happy Place by Emily Henry. I'm getting rid of all my Emily Henrys, as you can see. Actually, let's do these two. Book lovers. I have not read these and I won't read them. I've read two of Emily Henry's novels. Again, I'm also getting rid of these. Beach Read and People We Meet on Vacation. I actually liked People We Meet on Vacation. I thought it was an improvement from Beach Read. But the more that I see what she's releasing, and again, I haven't read Happy Place or Book Lovers, she's not changing anything. It's slightly different. It's the same stuff over and over again. It's like you're watching the same Hallmark movies, but different place and different actors and actresses. But the core of it is the same. I'm just not interested in that. And so I feel like I've read them all. And that was dramatic. I've read them all. It's just, I'm not interested. There was a period of time when I purchased those books. I want to say in like 2022, whatever, around there. I was padding my reading with some of these lighter novels and I'm not interested in that anymore. There are part of it is this. My reading has slowed down. I've said this a lot. I feel like a broken record at this point, but bear with me. I'm reading less. I'm reading half of what I was reading in a year. So 20 something books a year versus 50 plus. And so with that, you become way more selective with what you're going to want to read. And so I want to read books that bring me the most joy, which are depressing, like Dostoevsky's, Dostoevsky and a lot of, these just heavy philosophical texts. That's what I want. And I'm not going to read those. And I said this in my first unhaul. If I want to pick these books up in the future, I will get an e-reader and purchase them digitally so that they're not taking up shelf space. I want to leave my shelf space for things like East of Eden and Proust and The Russians and my classics and whatever it is that I want to read, and Outlander, because I will read the whole series one day, and the Game of Thrones, and that's what I want my physical copies to be. So there's that. But the likelihood of me picking up Emily Henry, slim to none. Blueberries by Elena Savage. I gave this a 3 out of 5 when I read it. I didn't dislike it. I had some critiques, but I didn't dislike it. And I think she's a talented writer. She knows how to put pen to paper and get her point across. And she did it in this book in particular, in this collection of essays, nonfiction, in some creative ways. And I appreciated that. I get why this is popular. Again, I have a review on this. I critiqued some of it, but the creativity, I appreciated it. But I kept this around thinking that maybe I would pick this up occasionally and just look at how she played with form. But I don't know. I just haven't, I kind of forgot, I have since forgotten about this book. So this is one that's probably going to go. I don't think I'm going to be picking this back up. But I got a lot out of this, despite my critiques, when I read it. But I don't think I'll be picking this back up. I think the last time I did my haul, I got a question here or there. Oh, what are you going to do? I'm just going to donate these books. I don't care about getting money back for them. I will donate them and somebody else can pick them up, especially if they don't mind an annotated book. Controversial. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clark. I was like, what is that on my floor? It's a charger. I tried. I made it halfway through. I couldn't do it. I DNF'd this back in 2023 in October, and I will not pick it back up. This is just not my cup of tea. I tried the audiobook. This book is way too long, and I like a long book. Obviously. I mean, I like a long book, okay? It took me 6 weeks to get through half of this book. This is a 1,000-pager. It took me 6 weeks at the time to read One Piece. I just could not. I could not. I know people adore this book. It's fun for them. I get it. I wanted to like it. This sounded like it was right up my alley. It's like historical fiction, but with magicians, but it's Dickensian at the same time. For me, Susanna Clark likes the sound of her own pen. I just couldn't do it. I still have Piranesi over here. I'm going to try that one eventually, and maybe that one I'll get on with. But Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, unfortunately, I couldn't get on with, and it was a drag for me, and I couldn't even finish it. And it's rare for me to not be able to finish a book. The Turnout by Megan Abbott. This is a ballet narrative. It's like a ballet thriller, which ballet and thriller goes hand in hand these days. Thanks, Black Swan, the movie. And I enjoyed it while I was reading it. This book is dark. It's twisted. And I enjoyed it while I was reading it. I think I gave it about a 3 out of 5. It was just fun to read. And again, I picked it up because you just don't come across many ballet narratives. But when you do, they're typically thrillers. And I'm kind of done with that at this point. I will not be picking this book back up as a reread. I read it. It's one of those books I've read it once, don't need to read it again. Let's do these two books together. Desert Creatures and Big Swiss. These were sent to me by Aardvark, which is a monthly subscription book service that sends books to your door monthly, or whenever you choose. You can skip months. And they sent this to me at the launch of very early on in the inception of their company. And so it's very much like book of the month. But so I didn't know which books they were going to send me when they reached out to me back in 2020, early 2023. And so these are two. I did keep one of the 3 called Sync, but these two, just looking at my shelves again, I'm not reading a whole lot. I'm reading, but I'm reading half of what I used to read. And so I'm looking at my shelves and I'm thinking, I'm just not going to gravitate toward those 2 books. They're actually not books I probably would have picked for myself. So I'm just not going to read them. And if they come across come into view later in life for me, maybe I'll pick them up, but they're just taking up shelf space for me at this time. I have a copy of The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas that I am unhauling because I've already read this book. Actually, it's right here. This is my other copy. This is my red copy, annotated. This is an abridged for... Bro. This is, despite the thickness, and I didn't realize it until after I ordered it, because I ordered this one first and then went back and purchased the other one, the Penguin edition. This is abridged, even though the cover is so cool. This is abridged. And I was like, I don't want the abridged version. I want the real version. I want the real deal. This is abridged. So unfortunately, I'm not going to read it. It's abridged. And so that's why I purchased the Penguin Classics edition after this. Really cool cover. I just wish it wasn't abridged. And it wasn't obvious that it was abridged. And I wish that I had known. Many copies, many translations of this book are abridged. If you want to make sure you're getting the unabridged version, go with Penguin Classics. Cool cover though. That thing is a blunt object. Let's do these 2 copies together. Alderton's Everything I Know About Love, which is, I think, a memoir-esque, and Ghosts. I picked up these two books because she's pretty popular. And at the time when I ordered them, I think back in like 2023, again, when I was reading like 50 books a year plus, I wanted to know what all the hype was about. And since then, I'm not interested. I am not interested. I don't care what Dolly Alderton knows about love. Baby, I don't care. I'm sorry. And Ghosts. We live in I just don't want to be bothered. I just don't want to be bothered with these books. I feel like I'm actually going to be annoyed. So, again, I'm taking a lot of fluff out of my reading, and I'm only just focusing on what I can read feasibly for me, and I'm just not going to, I don't know, a lot of contemporary releases, books that are contemporarily popular, don't do it for me. They don't. I really do get on with the really heavy, dark, grungy classics. And when, again, like I said earlier, when you are reading less, you get even more selective. They're Going to Love You. Gotta go. I read this book. I have a review on it. I didn't like it. And it's gotta go. I will never read that book again. I have a review. Same with Blue Sisters by Coco Mellors. Amazing. Amazing cover. I don't care. It's gotta go. Taking up space. I read it. I forget that I read this book. It did not stick in my memory. Didn't like it. I have some critiques. And wasn't worth the hype for me. So that's leaving. Let's do these two together. I'm running through these. The Other Bennett Sister and Miss Austen. Again, this cover is immaculate. I think I had this shipped from England. That crow is really hollering. Who hurt you? Probably cussing out his wife. Or she cussing out her husband. Or Pookie and them. Somebody getting cussed out. Who did it? Baby. But there is a theme here with these novels. They're retellings. Well, The Other Bennett Sister is a retelling of Jane Austen's infamous Pride and Prejudice, but from the perspective of Mary, I had some spit go down the wrong way, who is the overlooked Bennett sister of the four sisters. And so I realize I'm just not interested in Pride and Prejudice retellings. I like the original, and I'm going to stick with the original. I'm just not interested. I'm not actually interested really in many retellings of classics. I'm not really too interested in Jane Eyre retellings. There are books that I've read that were clearly inspired by Jane Eyre, but they're not exact retellings, okay? But I'm just not. But by retelling, I mean this. They're taking the same characters. It's the same character, same time period, same plot, same everything, and they're just telling it from a different perspective. I'm not really interested in that. Like Why Sargasso Sea? Didn't like it. Well written, didn't like it. Miss Austen is a novel on Jane Austen, and this was published like during the 2020, I want to say, but I knew about it in 2019, and I remember waiting for this to be released at the time. And okay, my memory is being refreshed. It is a novel about Jane Austen's sister, and she is kind of recalling her sister post her death. And at the time, I was really intrigued by this. I don't know. I'm not interested. Gorgeous cover. But I purchased this in 2020. I purchased a lot of books. Okay. During lockdowns in 2020. Because what else was there to do? We couldn't go nowhere. I'm not into it. Maybe this is just not my vibe. It's just not my vibe these days. My reading has changed quite a bit since 2019, 2020. Again, these are two books when I was trying to venture into reading maybe more rom-com type books. And so I was like, I want to see what the hype is with these two. Christina Lauren, which is a pair of friends who write these novels, The Honeymooners and Love in Other Words. I'm not going to read these. I'm just not going to read them. That was rude, wasn't it? I'm just not going to read them. I'm just not. That's just not my vibe. I feel like a broken record. I am not into. That's just not my vibe. And if it is your vibe, that's great. Again, people read for different reasons. Some people read because it's purely escape for them, and they want to read something that's familiar and predictable, cozy. They always want that happy ending, whatever the case may be. That's just not the type of reader I am. So I'm just not going to read them. They've been sitting on my shelves since like 2021 or 2022, something like that. And I'm just not going to read them. And again, if I just get this urge to read something a lot lighter, or I want to change up a genre every now and then just to change things up, those are so easy to get on Kindle or something like that. Whatever e-reader, if I choose to get one in the future, I would choose to use. I probably would actually go with Kobo, by the way, because Kindle can be a menace. But yeah, I want to pull these types of books off my shelves, and it makes room for other things. I have so much room on my shelves, it's crazy, but I'm not really replacing. So, 2 more novels on relationships. This Bird Has Flown, inspired by Jane Eyre, but not a Jane Eyre retelling, if you will. Susanna Hoffs is the reason why I picked this up, because I thought that the premise was interesting. I like it a little grungy. But Susanna Hoff was the lead singer of a band. I forgot which band it was. Oh my gosh. Let me Google it, because there's no excuse for me not. And like, I knew, and that was one reason why I was like, I want to know what she got to say in this book, in this novel, because she was in a band that was popular in the 80s. Dang, she was born in 1959. She looked great. No, she hasn't aged a day. She looks fantastic. The Bangles. She was the founding member of the Bangles. So anyway, this is definitely inspired by Jane Eyre, but the main character was trying to break out as a musician, but it kind of a flopped career. And so there's a lot of music references in here, and so she falls in love with this academic brooding man. Think Mr. Rochester. Okay. But I was like, okay, I wanted to see how Susanna Hoff was going to play off that and somehow make it unique. I didn't see a whole lot of hype around this book. Also, I think the cover is pretty cool. I mean, it's a little tacky in a good way. I'm just not going to read it. Again, I'm just not into it. This is when my reading was different, and meaning because I was reading a lot more, I was able to read more broadly across genres. That's just not a reality for me now. Also, this was another one of those books, Good Intentions. And this is not a book I saw a whole lot of people talking about, but it's long story short, because I'm kind of want to wrap this up, but you have 2 people of 2 vastly different backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, who are in a relationship, and what happens when you have 2 people from vastly different backgrounds. I mean, not just racial backgrounds, it's like cultural, religious backgrounds also are different here. What happens when those mesh together? Can you have a successful relationship? I purchased that in I want to say 2022, early 2023. But right now, I just don't care. I don't care to read the book. No offense to the book or anything like that. Again, it's just when your time is limited and your reading is limited, you have to be selective. And so I'm going to gravitate towards the Dostoevskys and the George Orwells. I'm looking down at books that I have just that I want to read, and Outlander and Game of Thrones, right? And books of Jacob. That's what I'm gravitating towards. I have 3 books left. A popular book I have had on my shelf since 2019. Some people might burn me at the stake for this, but I don't care. The Dutch House by Anne Patchett. At the time, it appealed to me. I don't care. I have looked at this book. I mean, the cover is, again, immaculate. People loved this book. It has a lot of hype around it. And I'm not saying not for good reason, but this book has been sitting on my shelf since 2019. maybe even 2018, somewhere around there. And that was when, so right around 2018, 2019, I started to get back into reading. I had read really for like 4 years and prior to 2018. And I was maybe reading a book a year, maybe. I know for some people watching me now, that would be like, what? I had a really stressful job at that time. I had a lot going on, and it is what it is. Life, it happens. This, I picked up when I was getting back into reading. So as I was getting back into reading, that's when I really started to expand my palette and picking up books maybe that I normally wouldn't have picked up, or this sounds interesting. Let's see, everything was exciting to me from like 2018 to 2020. And now that I've really narrowed in on what I do and do not want to read, or what my preferences are, perhaps, because I still read out of my comfort zone. I'm just not interested in this book though. Every time I look at it, I feel nothing. So it's taking up space. Again, I know people love that book, but if I choose to read it in the future, I'm going to put it on an e-reader. But again, don't get it twisted. I still read out of my comfort zone. I have a book right now that I'm reading that is not something that I probably would have picked out for myself, but the publisher sent it to me. And this book is a riot. I love it. I can't, and I'm only like 100 pages in. But anyway, it's A Gorgeous Excitement by Cynthia Weiner. So last two, I've read both of these, and I just don't think I'll read them again. Paul by Daisy Lafarge. I read this back in 2023, and I just thought it was lackluster. There are some moments of really good writing in this book, but overall, this book did not stick with me, and I still kind of look at it, I'm like, I did read that book, didn't I? I won't be reading it again. That doesn't mean that if Daisy Lafarge doesn't, chooses to publish another novel, I wouldn't read it. I would probably check it out. She has talent. That's not it. It's just this particular story. I read it. I don't regret reading it. Again, it was middle of the road for me. I gave it a 3, but it didn't stick with me. And so I am going to remove it from my shelf. Last but not least, this was a book sent to me by the publisher, Melville House, My Vey. I reviewed this book as well. Really interesting book. I think I might have rated it like a 4 out of 5. But for some reason, and if this book interests you, I do have a review on it. I say read it. But for some reason, this is one of those books, I'm looking at it and I'm like, I don't think I'm going to read this again. I feel like this is for me. This is one of those books, I read it once and I'm done. Sometimes there are books like that, and that's okay. So, don't get me wrong, I got a lot out of the book. This book was weird. It was weird, and it has themes that I like. But I think I'm done with it. That is it. Those are more books that I'm unhauling. I have made so much space on my shelves over the past, that's real crooked, over the past year. And so I think that maybe one thing that I will do this year, because the last time I did it was in 2023, before the end of 2025, I'll stick a pin in it. Somebody recommended in my comments, and I think it's a good idea to do an updated bookshelf tours, because these two shelves in particular have changed in the sense that I've gotten rid of a lot. Now I have another shelf in my living room that has not changed. Those are strictly classics, my Penguin Library, English Library classics. I will never get rid of those. Some of them are out of print and hard to find. But since I'm already here, again, I'm not really purchasing books, but I do have 4 books I want to show. Is it 3? No, it's 4. And again, my brother for Christmas asked me what I wanted for Christmas, and I told him I wanted Animal Farm and the Metamorphosis. And so this edition of the Metamorphosis by Kafka has some other short stories in it. And so I hope to get to these this year. I've read both of these. I read Animal Farm when I was in maybe like 14 years old. And I read the Metamorphosis in high school. They were both required reading. And I want to read them now as adults. I enjoyed them then. Got a lot out of them then, especially the Metamorphosis, because I was introduced to existentialism and existential literature in high school, and I've loved it ever since. So I want to revisit these as a more mature adult. And I was in LA again right at the end of 2024 into 2025, and actually left right before the fires broke out, ironically, which is crazy to think about, at a bookstore in Hollywood, West Hollywood, called The Book Soup. It's a small bookstore, but it's a really, really cool bookstore. The staff was amazing. Fathers and Children is a Russian classic I have wanted to read for a while. Fathers and Sons is how it can also be translated, but I decided to go with the New York Review Book Edition. You cannot go wrong with New York Review books. Man, they publish some good stuff. And also White Nights by Dostoevsky, tiny little slim novel. So I picked those two up in LA. So I hope this bookstore is still standing. It should be. It's in West Hollywood. West Hollywood did have a fire, but they got that one under control very quickly. But anyway, I picked those two up. So those will be hopefully read in 2025. I'm not buying, I don't know why I'm so dramatic. I am not buying as many books as I normally do, and I hope to purchase even less books than I did in 2024. I purchased 20 something books in 2024. I want to purchase even less than that. But I do have Septology in Morning and Evening on the Way by Jan Fosse. So again, I'm not going to put a number on how many books I do or do not want to purchase, but I'm really trying to just scale it back. Madonna in a Fur Coat is also a book that I just ordered because the Penguin edition that I wanted, that I had my eye on, I was like, oh, pardon me, I was burping. I'll get it when I get closer to reading it. It's out of print. Penguin. Why would you do that? So I was able to snag a copy at a slightly higher price, but it didn't break the bank. And so I was like, let me go ahead on and snag this book before I can't find it anymore. Because the other edition from a different publisher, I don't like that cover. I want the Penguin edition. Anyway, there that is. There's that. I have a stack of books here. Let me clean this up and it's time for lunch. Bye.